What I would like to talk about today is finding ways to synchronize with natural rhythms. So synchronizing or connecting are two words that I use. And so I want to talk about how to synchronize with the natural rhythms because plants are experiencing them too. And it's a really good way to start kind of getting into a sync with plants and to understanding where they're at. They go through cycles daily and through the seasons just as humans do. And so as a priestess, I am connected to the land, to nature, to all sorts of energy that we can't see, but maybe we can feel. And the solstices, the equinoxes, the moon phases, weather patterns, that all is affecting humans. And once I got really connected with those ebbs and flows daily, monthly, all the cycles, it really made sense to sometimes the way I felt. So energy-wise and things like that. So the solstices are when the day, so winter, okay. So summer solstice just happened, and that was when the days were the longest. And then the days are starting to get shorter because there's less sun. And then the winter equinox is when the sunlight starts to become more and more during the day. The equinoxes are a time when there's equal day and length, equal day and night length. So it's equal time. So those are really important times in the season, in the nature cycle, because they happen all over the world. There's no way to get around it and away from it, and everything starts to respond to more light or less light. Plants will start to do different things based on how much sunlight they have. So I like to keep those in mind and celebrate those. Also, the moon cycles. The moon cycles are in a 29-day cycle. There are two kinds of cycles, but there's the 29-day one, which is very much connected with women's reproductive cycles. So from the time women have their menstruation to the time they ovulate to the time they come back to menstruation, that's one moon cycle. So that's really cool. Super, super cool. So here you go, you have a moon cycle right here. And so usually for me, I like this full white one. To me symbolizes the full moon with a lot of light, and then growing into darkness where we cannot see the moon, and then growing, getting more and more light and back to the moon. So sometimes, let's see, I believe this is a 29-day cycle one. So what you can do is you can track kind of your energy levels through each day through a moon cycle and see if you have any patterns. If you menstruate, you can track it with the moon too and see if there's a specific time during the moon cycle where you start to bleed or you ovulate. And a lot of times it's usually around the full moon or the dark moon. The dark moon is also called the new moon. So those are two ways you can describe that. Yeah. So it's a really interesting way to see if your moods change. I get less energy the more we move toward the dark moon, and more energy as I move towards the full moon. So I try to plan things accordingly to that, because I know that I'm not going to have a lot of energy at certain parts of the moon phase. And then here you go to some other ideas, 7 ways to synchronize with nature. Add the full moon and new moon dates to your calendars and planners. Add the solstices and equinoxes dates to your calendars and planners. When nature hibernates, so shall you, which just means you may need to slow down. When nature soaks up the long days of the summer, so shall you. Get outside, take advantage of it. So start bringing in pieces of the outdoors so they're around you. Sleep outside to experience day and night noises and early morning sounds. I love doing that. And this is my favorite. Stop complaining about the weather. It's not going to change. You have to go with it. So it's it's just really interesting when I stopped complaining so much about the weather and just went with it. So if it was a rainy day, then I just did stuff indoors. And if it was too snowy outside and slippery, then, you know, I just stayed home. If it's really hot outside, just take advantage of beaches and pools and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly days where I'm uncomfortable and I don't like it and I'm ready for a change, but I try not to complain about it too much. I just feel like there are things that are happening in the plant world, and a lot of people are coming at them from a human perspective, and it's really hard for people to understand certain things about plants. For instance, this is my favorite example. A lot of times people will see an open area, like a field, that's just growing plants or weeds, things that just look too raggedy and messy. And they'll say, that's just a wasted area. Why don't they put some homes on it, or a park? Or why don't they, you know, put something on there so that it brings in income or brings in recreation? And as a plant priestess, I look at that plot of land and I see abundance. I see that there's soil with mycorrhiza in it that's benefiting the plants, and I see the plants as benefiting pollinators and birds and mammals, and it's giving us oxygen, it's giving us beauty. There's all sorts of plants there that will come up later as that area becomes progressively changes and gets trees on it and things like that. So like I see a whole different thing, and that to me is that plant priestess perspective of the land is sacred as it is. It has benefits. Just because it doesn't have a human impact doesn't mean it's a wasteland. Wetlands are the same way. A lot of people see wetlands as not important and smelly and stinky and gross looking, and there's huge benefits to wetlands, and lots of really cool plants live there that don't live anywhere else. They need that kind of water table moving up and down. So that plant priestess perspective also includes like using plants that are more for spiritual use and not just for ingestion. So that's a nutshell. That's all in a nutshell there. So yeah, ways to connect with nature. Start to, like I said, get in tune with when certain natural phenomena are happening, like the solstices, the equinoxes, and the moon cycle. So in the Plant Priestess Circle, when the equinoxes and the solstices happen, we do an online group celebration ceremony is what I call it. And I'll set a circle, you know, even though we're in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, we're only on this electronic space. I imagine we're all holding hands all over the world, and we're celebrating these natural phenomenon and getting in sync with what's happening with nature. I mean, so many times we can if I've experienced it where I'm like in an office, I'm in a house, and I don't really understand what's going on outside. Like, when's the last time it rained? I don't even know. I'm so stuck inside with no windows in an office or whatever. So those are good ways to just start getting used to what's happening on a cycle basis. What else do we do in the Plant Priestess Circle? So we have those observations, and I also talk about in those equinoxes and solstice celebrations, talk about what's happening with the plants and how that can relate to ourselves. So that's another way to kind of synchronize with that too.